Olivia Rodrigo songs barely sound like they come from the same artist, but somehow the melodies hit all in the same way. And for a while I figured it was just good songwriting, and honestly it is. But then I started mapping her melodies out, and the same few moves started showing up in every song. Not the same notes, but the same patterns. And so today we're going to break down Olivia Rodrigo's Drop Dead note by note. And by the end, you'll know the exact techniques that make her melodies hit so hard. And of course how you can use them in your own tracks. Technique number 1 is phrase architecture. Most people think that pop melodies start with notes, but to me, they don't. They start with structure. So if we have a look at the verse from Drop Dead, when you map out the phrase shape, here's what you get. A prime, A, and B. You've got the statement, same statement varied, statement again, and then a turn at the end. It's sort of like she's lulling you into this loop and then breaking it on the final phrase. You've got A that sounds like this. A prime, which is A with a slight variation. A one more time. And then B. So overall, you've got 3 phrases that sound familiar, and then the 4th one is what changes it up, and that right there is phrase architecture. And now if you do the same thing with the chorus, the shape changes completely. It becomes A prime, B, and then A double prime. You'll hear a similar repetition in the second half of the Trader chorus. So you've got the statement, she develops it downwards, lifts it up to a contrasting section, and then returns home at the end. And this one compared to the verse feels more emotional, and it just feels like there's a bit more of a narrative to it. But here's the part most people miss. Repetition isn't the point. The repetition is what makes the contrasting part feel more emotional. Because once your brain stops searching for new information, it starts predicting what's next, and that prediction is what she breaks. But phrase architecture alone doesn't create emotion. So what is it about these melodies that's actually doing the emotional work? Technique number 2, orbit notes. Now let's go a little bit deeper on Drop Dead. If you strip the verse down to its skeleton, you'll notice something pretty strange. The notes don't really move randomly, they orbit. There's one central tone that every note keeps returning to, and that single decision can define the entire emotional vibe. And this is where things get wild. In Drop Dead, the verse and the chorus each have a unique orbit note. In the verse, the note orbit is the 3rd. So this is what it sounds like in Drop Dead. Again, if you look at the second half of the Trader chorus, for example, you'll hear the same thing. And when I say 3rd, I'm referring to the 3rd note of the tonic major. And that 3rd is just really warm and sweet sounding. But if we take a look at the chorus, it drops down and orbits the 1. And orbiting the 1 just feels very grounded and resolved. But the emotional center of each section completely shifts because the orbit note changed. You'll start noticing the same trick everywhere else in her catalog. But the emotion of a song isn't just about what notes you land on. It's about which notes you don't play at all. Technique number 3, note clusters. So here is another reason Drop Dead hits so hard. Restriction. Olivia doesn't need to use the full scale in this track. She locks into a small group of notes, usually 3 to 5, and just stays there. And that can make a melody memorable, because instead of feeling like the melody's exploring every note available, it feels like it's circling something familiar. So watch how this applies in the verse of Drop Dead. The verse cluster is 3, 2, and 1, with an occasional 5 thrown in. It feels really tight and controlled, almost a little claustrophobic melodically, which is exactly the emotional vibe of the verse. So now watch what happens in the chorus. The first half opens up to 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. And that's the tonic triad 1, 3, and 5, plus 2 and 7 for a bit of color. And in the second half of the chorus, she does something even cooler. The cluster becomes 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, a pure descending line. and it's really one of the most universal melodic patterns in Western music. So the melody isn't coming from new chords, it's coming from an expanded space, a tight cluster in the verse and a wider cluster in the chorus. And although Olivia probably didn't follow a system, on some level it was by design. Technique number 4, entry timing and resolution. Two things that make or break a melodic phrase: how it starts and how it ends. And in Drop Dead, Olivia's really intentional about both. So let's start with entry timing. In the verse of Drop Dead, her phrases kind of float on the upbeat. It just feels more conversational and spoken. Have a listen to what it sounds like, particularly in the second half of each phrase. But in the chorus, every melodic note lands on the beat. Suddenly the melody just feels anchored, anthemic, and singable. She didn't add more notes, she just locked them to the downbeat. And that single kind of rhythmic flip is one of the biggest reasons her choruses feel bigger than the verses, even if the production stays the same. Now the second piece, the resolution. So the orbit creates tension, but the resolution closes the loop. And here's where Drop Dead gets really smart. The first time the chorus resolves, they use 2-to-1. Here's a quick example. You even hear the same thing in Driver's License at the end of the chorus, where she says, "I drive alone past your street." And to end a phrase, 2-to-1 is a really nice soft landing. But the final resolution is 7-to-1. And that's the leading tone, which is the strongest resolution in tonal music, really. So she gives you the gentle landing at first with 2-to-1 and saves the one that really closes that phrase, 7-to-1, for last. And by the time you get to that 7-to-1, your ears kind of been waiting for that resolution without even realizing. And that's really what makes the chorus feel earned. So if we break this track down, Olivia's melody is built from 4 interlocking systems. 1 is phrase architecture, AAA-B for the verse and AA-BA for the chorus. 2, the orbit notes, the verse orbiting the third and the chorus orbiting the 1. 3, note clusters, with a tight cluster in the verse and a wider cluster in the chorus. And 4, entry timing and resolution, floating on upbeats in the verse and locking into downbeats on the chorus. And that's why Olivia's melodies feel so simple on the surface, but somehow emotionally engineered underneath. And they don't stick or become viral in some way because they're complex, they stick because they're controlled. And once you start writing this way, your melody stops sounding random and starts sounding intentional. If you want my help applying this framework and others to your own tracks, hit the link below and book a free call. And if you like this video, check out this one over here. I think you'll really enjoy it.